Good morning and welcome to the Water Cooler, your home for USC Sports Banter. I'm your host, Thomas Johnson. You guessed it, the Water Cooler had our very own MJ Newsome in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum for USC football's brutal overtime loss of Penn State this past weekend. Let's hear from him on the 33-30 defeat.
An absolute thriller here at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Penn State gets a 33-30 win on a walk-off field goal in overtime. Lots of things to take away from this game. USC had an exceptional first half, leading at the break 20-6. Miller Moss, Quentin Joyner, Woody Marks, an exceptional running game in the first half. Riley began to stray away from it in the second half. Hats off to Penn State, man. Drew Aller came back, gunslinging. Tyler Warren, most receptions by a tight end ever. 17 receptions, over 230 yards and a touchdown. He was the X factor, and Penn State clawed their way back, got a big win. They improved to 6-0 for the second straight season. USC now falls to 3-3 overall, 1-3 in conference play. Once again, it's another week where we got to talk. Lincoln Riley and USC need to tighten things up and see what they can do as they move forward. Head to Maryland next week.
Now I'm joined here on the desk by Hayes Flanagan and Dylan Luden, and it's now that time of the day. It's time for Water Cooler Talk. Roll the bump. The Trojans put up a tough test against the then number 4 team in the Nittany Lions, leading by 14 at halftime. But slowly, Penn State chipped away, forced overtime, and won on a walk-off field goal. Mistake after mistake plagued USC, who now sits at 3-3 on the year. So my first question to you all is, why does USC keep losing these close games? And what do you think the Trojans' biggest roadblock to victory is?
I honestly think that USC, it's not mostly like Penn State or Minnesota winning these games. It's USC are defeating themselves in all honesty. And Miller Moss is starting to lose faith for me. I mean, he's missing wide open passes. He missed a wide open 6'6" Deuce Robinson, and he threw it over his head. How is that possible? And you throw a wide open interception. Michael Lance, the kicker, he can make every field goal except the clutch ones. I just think they're beating themselves in all honesty.
If you look at this team versus LSU and you look at this team versus Penn State, they look like very different teams. The energy is shifted. There's something different that it seems like they're like tattered. They're kind of just. They lost that spark that they had. They lost that connection. As Dylan said, Miller Moss is not looking his sharpest right now. But also, USC is letting one player on the opposing team decide that game. For Michigan, it was the running back. This week, it was Tyler Warren. That tight end set records.
Yeah.
In the Coliseum.
Well, I mean, where does that fall then? Because you guys talked about it. This team is a little bit tattered now. Does that fall on coaching? Does it fall on team leadership? Like, what is the problem here?
For me, I think it's a mixture of both. I think obviously I think it's Lincoln Riley. First off, he's a glorified Cliff Kingsbury in my eyes, and I don't think he should be the head coach anymore, and he'll be let go. Hopefully gone in a few years if this is how the next few years are going to look. But also Miller Moss for me too. He's not a very mobile quarterback like Caleb Williams, like Jay Mayava. He can't escape when that pocket is collapsing because that offensive line we all know it's not very good. But he's also starting to miss now wide open wide receivers, and you have to take that into account.
I'm going to disagree with you because I think it always falls on the coach, right? The coach and the quarterback, always. And that's the role you take on when you're a head coach, when you're a quarterback. You take that leadership role and you'll take the fall. There's a lack of discipline on this team. And you can tell from the flags to the missed catches to the random things that are happening on the sidelines that you can tell there is a lack of discipline. And I think that's where this is stemming from. There's a lack of true culture in that locker room of winning, of grit, of facing adversity, and that's what they're missing.
All right, well, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because you know I like to do that. And I'm going to bring up 2 points. So this is the first time that Lincoln Riley has truly had to hire an entire assistant coaching staff. When he became the head coach at Oklahoma, he pretty much inherited that entire coaching staff with a couple of pieces. He messed up when he first came to USC. Obviously, the Alex Grinch hiring that entire defensive staff, he's making up for those mistakes now. And I think at this problem, it could be Josh Henson, the offensive line coach.
I agree.
Maybe that's another assistant coach that needs to be moved out for a new wave of coaches. And I think Lincoln Riley's finally figuring it out. Again, he's still short into his USC tenure. If he can start to figure these things out, and I think he's doing so, I think USC will be just fine.
And that's the thing is USC, their numbers don't look terrible. If you look at their stats, their completion percentage is high. They're winning those third downs when they need to. It's literally these games that they're missing these passes. They're missing these tackles. And it's like that one tackle or that one pass decides the whole game.
Yeah.
That Michigan game, 3 plays decided that whole game.
Exactly.
And
so you're so close, and I feel like in USC culture, it's so quick. You got to be winning or you're out.
Yep.
And you see that, but it's like give someone time to build something. An empire doesn't come up in one day.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I hate it, Lincoln Riley is right in that he says, "Oh, we're 5 plays away from being undefeated." I don't like that
I do
mentality
agree.
because you don't want to put
Exactly.
yourself
Exactly.
in that situation. But
I do
mean,
agree, though.
I agree. Again,
Yeah.
they're a couple plays away. They've lost all 3 games by 1 score. But we could talk about USC football all day. But we'll move on briefly. And USC football might be on the down low, but Trojan fans can hop on the bandwagon of the men's basketball team before they inevitably fail to meet expectations and yet again disappoint the USC faithful. But for now, it's time for hope. The Trojans recently took on UTSA in an exhibition match, beating the Roadrunners 84-63. St. Thomas led the squad with his 21 points on 7 of 8 shooting from the field. So how are we feeling about this men's basketball team? All aboard the Must Bus?
Honestly, I'm aboard because there's no expectations. As you said, there's no room for disappointment. This is a team, as we talked about earlier, that is old. There are 8 grad students on this team. This is an old team, and I think that gives some character. That gives everyone's new on this team except for 2 players, which is crazy. Even the head coach, he brought in a whole new coaching staff. Like, it is a clean slate. And I like to see that. You like to see there's a new culture. There's a kind of like whatever happened last year. You know, we're on a clean slate. And these are some of these players' like last opportunity to kind of show what they have. So I like where this program is headed. I mean, UTSA, that game didn't mean much. They won by 20. Good for them. But I mean, I liked what I saw. And I mean, there's hope.
I mean, for me, I personally like Musselman as a coach. Obviously, he's had great success at developing NBA caliber guys at Arkansas, and I think he's a coach that honestly gets the most out of his players. He's a guy that won't yell at his players. He's going to uplift them and encourage them, which is nice and it's positive to see. He really embodies what Southern California is all about, too. I see him posting about Manhattan Beach all over the place, and I love what he's doing, honestly. But I got to say, again, I agree with Hayes. There's not a lot of expectations. I think we're starting to hit the rock bottom, and you can only go up from there. But with Musselman, a lot of these guys are just playing for each other, in all honesty. There's not really a big star on this team, no egos. They're all playing for each other, which I love to see. And I think they can have some success. But, again, it's going to take some time to really build up this program from the ground up.
Well, I was really impressed by St. Thomas's performance in that exhibition match. Graduate transfer from Northern Colorado. And mind you, Dalton Connect, a rookie for the Lakers, was also a transfer from Northern Colorado who went to Tennessee. So we might get a little glimpse of that. But moving on slightly, a lot of big name transfers. You mentioned it. 8 graduates, only 9 undergraduates, entirely built up of transfers. Who are you guys most looking forward to seeing at Galen Center?
Well, I think for me, the biggest player to come into this USC Trojans team is guard Desmond Claude from Xavier. He averaged 16.6 points a game, which is the most by any transfer coming in. He's also the Big East most improved player, and Xavier was a ranked team the whole time last year. So I think he's going to be the most important player to watch. I know he didn't have a great game versus UTSA, but he's definitely the most probably impactful transfer.
I think that's probably the most obvious one. As you mentioned, St. Thomas coming from Northern Colorado. He went to Loyola in Chicago before. He's that player that you need. He seems like that glue guy that's going to bring everyone together and kind of, I mean, as you said, Claude is a great playmaker. He's a great guard. He's great at the 1 and the 2, but you need someone down there. And USC has lacked a really good post player and just someone down there who can fight for those rebounds.
Well, yeah, post players I think is the biggest concern. So I want to talk about Chibuzo Agbo. He brings some size down into the paint. Again, we don't have a 7-footer on this squad.
No,
Like the Trojans do
surprising.
not have a 7-footer. That is a little bit concerning. But Agbo, he's just a big body down there. I think he's 6'9", 6'10", somewhere
6'10",
in that range. And so although he doesn't bring that 7-foot size, I mean, just look at the abilities he has. And I think he's a really good player. He's going to be an impact transfer for the Trojans. But we'll just have to wait and see, because I think that's the biggest deficiency for this squad is just the post.
Yeah.
And a lack of a true point guard. I think those are the two major problems for this
I don't
squad.
think you need a true point guard anymore, though, in the system. I really don't, and I think Claude can help facilitate that a lot. And I truly don't think you need one anymore.
I do. I'm interested to see what kind of post players do step up because the Penn transfer Josh Cohen, he can stretch up the floor. But Rashawn Agee, the transfer from Bowling Green, almost a walking double-double. And Musselman said that he's in the best shape of his life, and he's improved his work habits the most on his team. So I'd watch out for him.
Well, men's basketball getting its season started underway, but we have a couple of USC sports already in the thick of it. Trojans are in their first season in the Big Ten, and multiple sports have made strong transitions to the new conference. Women's soccer is still unbeaten in Big Ten play, beating Ohio State 1-0 at BMO Stadium last night. Women's volleyball is ranked number 16 in the country and has a strong 4-2 mark in one of the best volleyball leagues in the country. And men's water polo, who does not play in the Big Ten, but rather the MPSF conference, sits at number 3 in the country behind Stanford and UCLA. All of these three teams are ranked, but which USC team has looked the most impressive to you so far?
It has to be women's volleyball. I mean, that match versus UCLA on Sunday, one, they set an attendance record. 7,000 people attended that game. The energy in there was electric. They won 3-2, which UCLA is not ranked, but it just proves this team is gritty. They will do anything to win. Like, I went to a game versus LMU. They went to 5 sets, and this 4th set went to 35 points. This team knows what it takes to win. They beat Michigan. They beat Minnesota. They beat UCLA. They're on a tear right now. They took a loss to Oregon, but they bounced back. And I do think that this team has something very special in Allie Batenhorst, who's an outside transfer from Nebraska. She brings that height, that power that USC's always needed with Mia Tuaniga setting those perfect balls. She's never had someone like that who's going to kill that ball every single time.
I think for me, I think it's women's soccer. They have the least amount of losses of any of these three teams, 12-1-2 record, ranked number 9, and they just beat number 15 Ohio State in BMO Stadium on an 82nd minute goal from Simone Jackson. This team is on fire. They have the most road wins out of any team in the country. I mean, they've been like all over the country this year, just playing because of their new stadium construction. They've been great. They have a bunch of transfers as well. Miley Hayes leads the team in goals with 7. She's really come on as of late. Helena Sampaio, a returner, leads the team with 5 assists. Lawrence Gladue, really up there in the Big Ten in shutouts with 8. I mean, this team is just dominant from start to finish. They control possession. They know what they're doing each and every single time they get on the pitch. And this is a team to watch out for when the tournament comes into play. They've been disrespected all year in the coaches poll, but they moved from 19 to 9.
Yeah, they made a huge jump.
Yeah.
That was crazy for me. I think the craziest storyline, because they were, I think at one point, number 6 in RPI, but number 23
yes,
in the coaches poll.
Yes, it was
and
crazy.
They're finally getting the respect they deserve. But I'm going to talk about a team that has the highest ranking out of any of your teams. Number 16, number 9, but number 3 for men's water polo. They're led by Carson Kranz and Max Miller, 100 career goal scorers for the Trojans. And to boot, they have Robert Lopez Duarte, who is a transfer from Long Beach State, and he's racking up the MPSF Newcomer of the Week awards like crazy. And beyond that, you have Bernardo Herzer in goal. This is a team, sure, they lost to UCLA earlier, they lost to Stanford, but they also beat Stanford earlier this year. They beaten Cal. They expect this every year. They're one of the top water polo teams in the country, but I think the Trojans, they've just looked the most impressive coming off of a year where they lost players like Massimo Di Martire. I think this has been a very good bounce back year for USC.
I was just going to say, I was at the game on Wednesday, and this team is so good in the stretch. It was 6-6 at one point. They took Princeton, and in the stretch, they scored 4 goals in a row, and the game was done by that.
Well, nonetheless, super impressive performances from the Trojans so far, but we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we talk MLB postseason heroes, our preseason picks for NBA awards, and high-profile emotions from some high-profile personalities. The water cooler will resume shortly. Welcome back to the water cooler. I'm Thomas Johnson, joined alongside Kyle Frankel and Sebastian Bustamante for the second half of our show. And we are in the middle of the AL and NL Championship Series, meaning only 4 teams remain, but there are still many chances for players to etch themselves into league history. The New York Yankees currently lead the Cleveland Guardians 2-1, and the Los Angeles Dodgers are up 3-1 over the New York Mets. So who do you guys think will be able to become the heroes of these playoffs for any team?
Well, I'll tell you what, the Mets desperately need a hero, and I'll give you a hint. He's not from Gotham City. He's not from the planet Krypton. He's from Caguas, Puerto Rico. I'm rolling with Francisco Lindor. I just love the guy. Love how he addressed the media. He goes, if you have no belief, you shouldn't be here. And that's exactly what I need with my Mr. October pick. He's had a pretty good postseason, nothing special. But against the Phillies, he was good. 5 RBIs, 5 hits, a homer. But he's going to need to step up. The Mets are down 3-1. If he's really going to be my Mr. October pick, I need to see him composed. He needs to bring the runners in. I mean, are you rolling with someone else, Kyle? No, you're not. That's what I thought.
Sebastian, the fact that you just said not anything special
He's doing all right.
is disrespectful. This is the most underappreciated superstar of our generation. He's going to finish runner-up in MVP voting this year. And it's not just the numbers. It's not about the numbers. It's the way he's going about his business. This guy is a pro's pro, and he does it time and time again. He's in the middle of everything. Even that Alonso at bat in Milwaukee, he starts the inning off, goes down 0-2 in the count, works a 9-pitch walk. This guy's a leader, hits a leadoff home run the other day. Doesn't celebrate because the job's not finished. He goes and tells Vientos, gives him some inside info. Vientos hits a grand slam next. It's the way he does it. He comes up in the big moments. He did it in Atlanta with that homer in the 9th. He did it in Milwaukee when he got that inning started in the 9th. He did it against Philly with the grand slam. And when Dodgers were setting a scoreless record streak on the verge in Game 2, he said nope. He wiped himself, got his boys off the mat, and in first at bat of the game, leadoff bomb. This guy's a gamer. He's had big moment time after time after time, and he's going to do it again today. Francisco Lindor, legacy game. He's got one more left in him. Mets got one more miracle, who knows? But Lindor's going to have a big moment today.
Well, like you mentioned, it's going to take a miracle for the Mets to win over the Dodgers, and I prefer my Mr. October to actually make it to the World Series. So I'm going to pick Aaron Judge of the New York Yankees going across the subway. He just hasn't, I felt, in the playoffs had a marquee moment. He nearly had one last night when he went back-to-back with Giancarlo Stanton against the Guardians. Obviously, the Guardians able to win it in extra innings. But I think it has to be Aaron Judge. He had an insane season this year. He's going to be the AL MVP. I think it's his time to become Mr. October.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think the Mets might need Kyle Frankel, honestly, at this
They
point.
might. I gotta suit up after this. I'm ready. I'm ready to fight for my boys.
If you need the jacket, just let me know.
All right, I got you.
Well, we'll move from the postseason to the preseason. Let's talk about the NBA. As we're getting ready for the start of the regular season, it's never too early to submit our picks for the upcoming year. But we're going to take a little bit of a different spin on things. I want to hear your guys' picks for both MVP and most disappointing player this season.
MVP. I mean, look, nobody's talking about Ja. Nobody's talking about Ja. Ja didn't play last year. Grizzlies were bad. Nobody's talking about Ja. This is a guy. His last 2 full seasons in the league was averaging about 27, 7, and 6. This is a guy who's putting up near MVP type numbers the last few years he was healthy. He's on that verge. The Grizzlies were unbelievable when he was healthy, and I think the Grizzlies are gonna have a real bounce back year. I think Ja's gonna have a bounce back year. And I think he's gonna kind of remind everybody that he is that guy. Obviously, some not great stuff and everything, but look, he's got his head back on straight. He's a man on a mission. Ja's gonna have a big season.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the only pick here. I'm going with Luka Doncic. I mean, the guy, I don't know if he has a ceiling. Last year, led the NBA in points per game, came up second in assists. He's got flashes of Jason Williams. Shout out White Chocolate. I mean, I have to. I love the way Luka's playing. And then more importantly, he led the Mavericks to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2011 when Dirk took on the Big Three in Miami. And they had a great free agency, picked up Klay Thompson, Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, he's got great pieces around him, Derek Lively. He's going to capitalize on that. He keeps getting better, and he's going to be holding that hardware by the end of the year.
Well, I'm going to take it to a second-year player. I'm fully on the Victor Wembanyama train. And we're talking about most valuable player, and there is no player more valuable to their team than Victor Wembanyama. Sure, he has Chris Paul, but what other weapons do the Spurs really have? I think if you're playing to the definition of the name MVP, most valuable player, it has to go to Victor Wembanyama. But we're going to move over to a slightly different topic, staying on the same lens. and most disappointing players. Kyle, I want to hear from you first. Who's going to be your most disappointing player this season?
Yeah, first of all, if Victor Wembanyama, if we're going by the letter of the law MVP, then Francisco Lindor will be MVP. But that's another story. Most disappointing player, Joel Embiid. And look,
I like that.
if you're going to go hunting the stats and look for some stats about why Embiid's not good, they're not there. He's been really good the last 3 years. He's been unbelievable. But all you need to look at are these lowlights. I mean, these are so bad. They're so bad. And this is more just kind of a vibes pick. I don't really like Embiid. I don't like his attitude. They added Paul George, and it's going to take touches away from him. I just don't think he's going to have the same type of year. I don't like his mindset. If you heard him the other day saying, I'm never going to play a back-to-back again, it's just there's something about this guy that's giving me the vibe that bad year coming, bad year.
All right, I'm going with Julius Randle. I mean, he just got traded to the Timberwolves.
Mean.
That's a great pick. I mean, the guy hasn't played in a real NBA game since January, coming off a shoulder surgery, and now he's getting paired up with Rudy Gobert. I mean, you've got the experiment of the two bigs in the paint. That's going to get extremely clogged. Any defensive play and any good defensive coach is going to run a double there. Julius Randle's coming off his worst year in terms of handling the ball, 3.5 turnovers a game. And he's not a catch-and-shoot guy. He's strictly off the dribble. How is that going to pair up with Anthony Edwards? That is what Anthony Edwards does. Takes it to the rack, dishes it out. Julius Randle's not the guy who's going to sit in the corner and just pop up. Come on.
Yeah, but he's got the big ragu catch and shoot.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate that.
Well, we'll stick with basketball as we head into the last portion of our show. It's time for the great debate, Roll the Bump. The Boston Celtics were the NBA Finals favorites at the start of the playoffs this past year, and they made bettors happy, taking home the trophy over the Dallas Mavericks in 5 games. With how dominant the Celtics were last season, we're going to have to be a little bit quick with this great debate. Do we think Boston can repeat, or will you take the field?
If you're saying that I have to be quick, then I'm just going to say yes, absolutely. There's no depth like the Celtics. They have Drew Holiday, Derek White. What's that laugh right there? I'm not kidding, bro. I mean, they've got the best hot take, best backcourt in the league in terms of defensive and hustle play unit. And then on top of that, they dominated the NBA last year. 2nd in points per game, best record in the NBA. I mean, dude, anyone who made some good offseason moves, great. They might be able to compete, but at the end of the day, Celtics are going to run the exact same thing they did. They got Team USA experience over the summer, winning the gold. The team's looking even better than before. So.
Did Jason Tatum play much in those Olympics?
Yeah, but I'm not talking about
Tatum.
Tatum.
Was he playing much?
No, but
Was he in the finals? Sorry.
No, it's all good. We're talking about the regular season, and we're talking about the finals, not.
No, we're
the
actually talking about
Olympics.
who's going to win the championship, and it's not going to be the Celtics.
Well, who's it going to be, Kyle?
I don't know, but this isn't
but
a
you
pick.
don't know.
This isn't a pick. The question wasn't pick a specific team. The question was, are the Celtics going to repeat? And the answer is no. It's extremely hard to repeat. If it was as easy as just picking the best team every year, then everybody would be rich. We'd all just be winning money on these gambling futures on the favorites.
I mean, this isn't the lottery.
It's not that easy. It's just not that easy. There's too many other good teams. The Nuggets are their kryptonite if they meet them. I mean, there's all those teams. The West is super strong, and the East got better. Not to mention, my Knicks. That's literally a Celtic killer. Their only goal in building a team is let's kill the Celtics. They got the 2 best defensive wings in the league to take out Jason Tatum, winning the gold medal, and Jaylen Brown. And then you pair that with Jalen Brunson and the best shooting center in the league in Karl Anthony Towns. I'm not saying the Knicks are going to win the championship, but if I'm the Celtics, that's a team I don't want to face in the playoffs.
I'm also going to take the field here. I don't know if the Celtics can repeat. Like you mentioned, Kyle, it's just way too hard to do. But to wrap up our show, let's talk about crashing out. And no, I'm not talking about midterms for USC students. I'm talking about high-profile personalities. It's time for final memos. Let's roll the bump. Various sports personalities had multiple emphatic reactions on the field this past week. Let's start with Georgia head coach Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart went viral for pushing Mississippi State quarterback Michael Van Buren after Van Buren ran out of bounds, which, usually should end in major discipline, but no flag thrown, no fine from the SEC. Crazy. Nick Sirianni now, he's chirping his own home fans after a win. After a win, he's chirping his fans. And then this last one, Trayshawn Holden, a wide receiver for Oregon, spits on an Ohio State player, gets ejected. Just a week full of crash outs on the field. Which one do you think is the biggest crash out, though?
Yeah.
Sirianni.
No, I disagree. I think the player, spitting in the second quarter, dude. It wasn't the end of the game. You're getting ejected. You're one of the biggest pieces of your team, and you're just spitting in an opposing player's face mask like that.
Yeah, maybe it's something stuck in his throat. You don't know.
No,
we don't know.
for sure.
I don't want to jump to conclusions, but Nick Sirianni, he's the corniest guy in the NFL. He really is. And
I disagree.
I kind of love the clips he creates. He's just an awesome personality to have. And screaming at your own fans like that is just, it's blasphemous. I don't know what he thinks is going to happen to him.
I mean, it could be electric. You could be trying to get them riled up. I don't know.
They already won the game.
They had won the game.
They already won the game.
I don't think it can be a player. You're in the heat of the moment, like sure, spitting on another player, you can't be doing that. But we're talking about major crash outs here. And there are these two coaches. They're not on the field.
Yeah.
They're trying to coach their team.
Grown men.
Kirby Smart pushed an opposing player.
that was out of pocket.
And he didn't get a fine.
He doesn't remember it happening.
Yeah, he doesn't remember it
He doesn't
happening.
remember it
I'm like,
happening.
I'm honestly, this is a
seeing red.
tier. This is a tier for me. I think it's Sirianni and Smart in the top tier. Coaches can't be doing that. I might have to give the edge to Sirianni. You can't be chirping your own fans after you win a game. It just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense. But again, Kirby Smart pushed an opposing player. I think those are just two bad crash outs. But I don't know. But that is all the time we have today on the water cooler. For our entire cast and crew, I'm Thomas Johnson. I know if I've had a good time, I hope you all did too. We will see you next time on the water cooler.